And you see businesses like Massey who are now looking for security professionals who are also bilingual.
A lot of what AI does is a lot of the background work, whether it's glossary building, terminology management. Andrew's a professional interpreter. I'm a professional translator. I was waiting for the magic word localization.
Localization.
Took a trip to Diego Martin North Secondary in collaboration with the Heroes Foundation in Trinidad. After helping migrants in their career and linguistic development, we got an opportunity to speak with Andrew Spring, an operational planner and trainer in TE's Defense Force, a Spanish-English freelance interpreter among other things. You won't want to miss this video.
Hey, how's it going? So, bumped into my good friend here, Andrew, host of the Child Las Leves podcast series, and we're here at Diego Martin North Secondary at an event being hosted by the Heroes Foundation. So bouncing into my good friend Andrew, and we're talking about the differences between translation and interpreting. So I thought it would be a good idea to make a little content for us to discuss and share the information that we learn with you, the viewer. So Andrew, how you going?
Not too bad, and glad to bounce into you in person.
Same.
Finally.
Same. Yeah. So one of the first things that caught my attention based off my conversation with Andrew, we were talking about the use of AI in our respective fields. So as I mentioned, Andrew's a professional interpreter. I'm a professional translator, and I found it interesting to hear about how AI is being used in his field. So Andrew, tell me a little bit about how you think you would use AI, how AI is used in the field of interpreting today.
In the field itself, how would I use AI? I would use it to assist with things like glossary building, which is important for translators, but also, of course, for interpreters.
Yeah.
I would use it for those things. I would use AI for a lot of the background work, you could say, for the prep work.
Yes.
Where I probably would not use AI is for direct interpreting.
Right.
Although maybe eventually things will go in that direction.
Okay.
But because things like context
Yes.
is essential for both interpreters and translators.
Correct.
And because as human beings we understand context more and are able to more quickly grasp context.
Yeah.
I personally would not use it for interpreting in live settings. Definitely.
Fully agreed. And I guess to piggyback off of what you're saying, the same applies to translation, I would say. So in our field, I talk a lot about CAT tools, computer assisted translation, which is AI. I try to tell people that the term AI itself is fairly new, but in the field of translation, AI has been in existence for close to 50 years. But just as you describe in interpreting, a lot of what translation, in terms of translation, a lot of what AI does is a lot of the background work, whether it's glossary building, terminology management, term bases, a lot of the background work in order to prepare translation so that when the human element is involved, we are able to focus on the most important thing, which is the actual work itself. So really interesting to hear that. What would you say about interpreting, especially within the context of the Caribbean?
I think it's one of those fields that, as we were mentioning before, I think people don't realize how necessary it is. Because we live in a region that is so multicultural, and communication is important.
Multilingual?
Multicultural, multilingual, and communication is essential, not only in a professional setting, but also in your leisure. Communication in general is essential.
Indeed.
Professionally in the region, I think, unfortunately, if this field doesn't receive the attention that it should. I think culturally, maybe because we are generally monolingual in the English-speaking Caribbean.
Correct.
I think we don't understand how important it is to have variety in language and in communication. unfortunately.
Yeah.
We have a lot of businesses who are now expanding to Latin America.
Correct.
Sometimes you look at the job market and you see businesses like Massey who are now looking for security professionals who are also bilingual. You know, not only in security, you're going to need persons who could manage language in every part of your business.
Correct.
The legal aspect of your business. Maybe your business has a medical module.
Correct.
You're going to need people who understand how to communicate in
Various languages.
this type of language.
Yep.
Not only communicate. Bilingual people, there are a lot of bilingual people. But you need people who are trained to communicate in very specific, correct, context-considered ways.
I was waiting for the magic word, localization.
Localization.
Like,
you need people who understand not only the language, but how is the language used in a particular space.
In a local context.
In a local context.
Agreed. And I thought when you were mentioning businesses, the one that came to my mind was Caribbean Airlines that recently opened new flights from Trinidad, for example, to Martinique and Guadeloupe. So right there, what came to mind to me was like French. And as you rightfully said, and I agree, I realized that a lot of English-speaking countries and English speakers in general, we tend to assume that it's up to everybody else to speak our language, as opposed to making the effort to communicate with people in their language in order to localize a message, to speak to somebody who lives in Martinique, and the value in a business sense, in a dollars and cents manner. Speaking to somebody from Martinique, from Guadeloupe, from French Guyana, from Cuba, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, speaking to them in their own individual, not just Spanish or French, but in their own individual language, and the benefit that that could have in dollars and cents. So
definitely. And I think too, that's a real concept where English speakers think that everybody else should learn English because English is basically the global standard, right? I mean, and it is. Nobody is denying that it is. You know, you speak to people from Europe and well, the non-English speakers, and everybody's learning English, or would have learned English as a child, or whatever is the case. So we do have that concept, and I think that that could probably apply a little more to very large countries like the US.
Right.
But when you're looking at countries like Trinidad and Tobago, you know, in the region itself, the English-speaking Caribbean, I think we should leave that concept alone, because if you're looking at business, the market of people in Latin America, you're talking about hundreds of millions of Spanish speakers. You're talking about a lot of French speakers as well in places like Haiti, Martinique, and the wider world, in a lot of Africa and France. So
countries,
language in our part of the world is something that ought to be developed so that we could reach out to the region. Because, you know, all of Latin America is not going to come here to seek business. Sometimes we are going to have to go to them. And when we go to them, are we going to, you know, expect that they are going to speak English to us?
Or are we going to speak to them in their language?
What is the better approach? Obviously, the better approach is that we learn their language, or at least we have professionals with us who speak their language professionally, trained professionals who could communicate on our behalf with them, you know. But we ought not to get roped too deeply into that concept that, you know, foreigners should learn English. That might apply to the US, that has a huge market and a huge country, but Caribbean people ought to shy away from that.